I want to thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of the Your Birth Network podcast. My name is Jariel Campbell, and I am your host. I am joined today by Grace, who is our amazing guest for the day. We are still talking about birth stories in this season, and so I get to be joined by some incredibly powerhouse women who are sharing with us the story behind, how they got pregnant, like what were they expecting, what actually happened in labor and delivery, and then how they managed once they got home with their baby throughout the postpartum period, the support that they had, and the things that were the most impactful on them throughout their experience. And so that's what we're going to talk about again today. So I'm so excited to be able to do this season. And I am going to let Grace take over. If you want to introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are, what you do, and anything personal you want to share so people can get to know you a little bit.
Cool. So I'm Grace, and I live in Danville, California. And so I was born and raised from Beijing, China, and I came to the States about 11 years ago.
Wow.
And so I help dog owners who are struggling with their shy, fearful, and reactive dogs, and I help them live a fuller life with a much more relaxed and well-behaved dogs.
Nice.
So that's my business, and I just became first-time mom last October. I have a 10-month-old baby girl, and very fulfilling life, as well as very crazy from time to time. And while she's not obviously super difficult and baby per se, she's very healthy and she's very talkative. Right now she tried to stand up and try to do her leaps and try to walk.
Yeah.
But she's also a not so easy baby. There's a lot of challenges as well. Like right now she's constipated all the time.
Oh.
And as a baby, so she's been constipated since she's born. And so right now she's actually on lactives to help her poop. So we always joke about there's no dual moment once you become a mom. There are always things going on.
No, absolutely true. So tell us a little bit about when you found out that you were pregnant and how you ended up telling your partner, and kind of what happened throughout your pregnancy.
Ooh, so we're really planning on trying to get pregnant. So we're I bought all this, the digital peeing stick, say you're ovulating type of thing, right? So we're actively, so we were passively trying for a couple of years and we never conceived.
Okay.
So we eventually okay, let's talk to the doctor and see what's going on. So the doctor said, oh, you guys don't do nearly enough, right? Like you have to do more, right? On time, go get a stick. And I realized what happened is I have this little phone app thing. You type in the date to tell you. And apparently I have been so off on my own estimates when my windows are actually not within the normal windows, like what they tell you. So once I have this, the stick that you pee on, they tell you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so off for so long. So I think we got pregnant month 6 after we actively trying. So lucky compared to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But how we found out was it's a day bittersweet. One our we used to have 2 chinchillas. And then one of them passed away a couple years back, and then the last one passed away the day we found out we're pregnant.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I still remember the day, we just sent her to the hospital, right? They do the cremation and everything. We came home and I realized I was late and maybe I was pregnant. So we only had one pregnancy test and it showed us pink strip or whatever. We're like, oh, I think I'm pregnant. But then you can't confirm it. There's no second stick, right? Then the second day I went to Target, got another one, to pee again. Right? Yeah. A lot of peeing apparently. So yeah, it finally confirmed. I took a picture and sent to my husband. He's at work. And then but then we agreed on not to tell anybody just yet, right? Usually you don't announce it till, you make sure that's it. So, and it was, I think it was super hard for him to
hold it,
right?
Yeah.
Because he's been want to be a daddy for a long time. So we married next year we're married for 10 years. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we're like,
Congratulations.
thanks. We married on 11/11/11. So
Aw, love it.
thanks. So yeah, so that's kind of like, so we found out we're pregnant, and then I was like, oh my gosh. But part of it, I think, is like, oh my gosh, my tummy is still small. Obviously, like you start reading all the apps. I download all the like mommy apps, right? Reading
Yeah.
books or blog posts. You just start like searching. Oh, what are the symptoms? What are this? What are that? Um, and then I think, I don't remember exactly. So we did take weekly pictures, I think, to see. And then there's a while like, yeah, my tummy's still not like have bumps or anything. And then
Mhm.
I think, and everybody will tell you like, oh, it's gonna be overnight. Like you just suddenly have a bump. And
Mhm.
it's really do feel that way. It's like suddenly like, oh my gosh, I initially I still wear like regular shirts and stuff.
Mhm.
And then one day I'm like, oh my gosh, none of the shirt fit anymore. And then I bought some pregnancy shirt and a maternity shirt, right? And then at the beginning I was like, oh, those gonna fit for a while. Then they stop fitting. Like there's not enough space. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that went to shopping another time to actually find the one that have bigger bump area. And I
Mhm.
gained 50 pounds during pregnancy.
Mm.
So I had a huge tummy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I cheated. I just bought like dresses and just sized up like from medium to large, large to extra large, and that's how I cheated.
yeah, I couldn't make that happen because
Yeah.
my frame's really small, and and I try to like, oh, I try to find the clothes that are like more you can wear for longer times.
Yeah.
I still, till this day, I still wear some of my maternity shirts that they don't look too bad or make you look pregnant.
Yeah.
Um, but some of them obviously like, okay, that's not gonna, yeah, it's no good once you had the baby.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of like, we did take weekly pictures. I haven't even got a chance to review them or anything.
Mm.
And it's just so busy once the baby's born, right? Things just,
No, for
everything's
sure.
out the window. Um, and then about 3 months, well, after 3 months, we got, what they do, a heartbeat or something, right? You when you get
Mhm.
your first ultrasound and stuff like that, so they confirmed. And then that's when we like finally announced it. And my
Mm.
mother-in-law was super excited because she took her, my husband was the oldest in his
Oh,
family,
okay.
and took my in-laws, I think maybe about a decade to try to get pregnant to have him.
Mm.
So
Wow.
so she couldn't wait to have a grandchild.
Mm.
And so this is her so far first and only grandchild.
Wow.
And so she's obviously super excited.
Yeah.
And then we got this DNA test to try to know the gender. A lot of people ask me, like, if you want to know the gender beforehand and stuff. So I grew up in China. So in China, you're not allowed to know the gender of the child.
Oh, okay.
So part of me is like, oh my gosh, I want to know because I can, right? Like they here they let you know that.
Yeah.
So we got this early testing, and the other thing is my husband also, he had two more brothers.
Mm.
So my mother-in-law have three sons. So this is, once we told her it's a granddaughter, and
Excitement is like all the way through
yeah,
the roof.
yeah, I know. And oh my gosh, so that's really awesome part. Like
Mm.
before my daughter's born, I know she's like super loved, and I joke
Yeah.
about, oh, you're planned, like you're planned, you're loved, and we're ready, and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So
How was
so
your
over
pregnancy?
well, the first 5 months I had morning sickness, so but not happen in the morning per se, but I will pretty much vomiting after lunch for some reason.
Mm.
So till I was like 5 or 6 months,
Wow. Okay.
because people always say, oh, only at the beginning, right? And at the beginning, I thought I was pretty good. I'm like, oh, I'm lucky. And then suddenly
Mm.
I just like, oh, I need to vomit. And it's from morning sickness,
Yeah.
because you just vomit and like, oh, everything just out. Okay, now I'm good. Like you don't feel the sickness when you like get food poisoning or anything, or your muscles aching and stuff.
Right.
I didn't have those. So I was just like, okay, it's time to puke. That sort of thing.
Wow. And that happened every day at lunch from 3 months to 6 months?
Uh, not that often. I would say 2-3 times a week
That's still a lot.
after
Yeah.
lunch. After
Okay.
lunch, yeah,
Wow.
and occasionally after breakfast, there's certain things I just can't eat anymore. I couldn't eat oatmeals.
Mm.
If I eat oatmeals, I puke, and it's the weirdest thing. And then I start developing heartburns. Like I don't remember the exactly timeline, but probably
Mhm.
mid pregnancy towards the late pregnancy, I had really bad heartburns.
Okay.
I couldn't sleep, like I would be coughing nonstop.
Mm.
I think I'll be in big trouble now if I'm coughing like that on the street.
Definitely.
Um, but I went to the doctor. They just said, "Oh, take antacid." I had
Mhm.
Tums. I had other antacid pills, and none of them helped.
Okay.
Till and it's kind of irony. I'm Chinese. I said, "Oh, this is time I should seek some Oriental ways to fix my problem," because I was at the point I just couldn't sleep at night. I have to sit
Mm.
up, and even though I sit up, I still can't stop coughing.
Yeah.
And
What traditions
so
did you tap into from back home when you say,
no, I it's a funny things that I was like, I start seeking if there's a herb thing maybe can help me.
oh, okay.
Um, and then one of my dog training clients, she's actually an acupuncturist.
Oh, okay.
So so I asked her, I said, hey, what can I do? Right? I said, this is time like a Chinese have to ask American, like, hey, teach me some Chinese acupuncture tricks. And then she actually recommended me to a local acupuncturist
Okay.
that's much closer to me. So I actually went get acupuncture treatment for pretty much every week for like a couple of months till I give
Wow.
birth. And this certainly helped. And
That's
that's
fantastic.
actually really helpful. And then she also tell me what type of herbal tea I need to drink. So I drank tons of herbal tea
Oh, okay.
at the time. So really helped my acid reflux. And so that was really good. Um, and then I tried to, the weirdest thing, I was like, I telling my husband, I have to try to eat everything. So make sure my baby doesn't have like food allergies or anything. So I'm like, have a menu. Okay, I've ate like Chinese food, I ate American food, and then there's a while like, oh, I have to eat Indian food. And I don't eat spicy food much. And then I was like, I'm gonna eat Indian food. Then I have this horrible heartburn for the
Oh.
day. And I was like, oh my God, never again. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's some of the things throughout the pregnancy that I can remember, like recall and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then we were house hunting actually.
Oh.
We during my pretty sickness time that we're actually house hunting. So I was like super sick and I can't barely eat and stuff. And then I have to like, if you ever house hunting, I don't know, here where I live, like you go on tour before, this is before pandemic, obviously, you go on tour
Mhm.
and you go visit like 10 houses a day. So you,
Yeah.
so you're like, so I'm like, oh, the whole day I'm like feeling half sick, and then just look at the houses. I'm like, okay, okay. And so we did that for like 2 weeks, try to find the house that I think we visited like 30 houses or something
Wow.
crazy like that. And then so we bought a house and then we moved from our old place to new place all
Mhm.
during my pregnancy,
Wow.
because part it's also like we want to get it done before the baby arrives. It's like you try to plan it out. And then our new house actually have super old roofs. So when we do the inspection, they said, "Oh, your roof probably gonna like kind of fall apart in a year or so." And then so we're like, "Okay, we just bought a house. Now we're like need to replace the roof." I said, "I don't want in um, California. It's raining season in the winter. Like then my baby gonna due in October, and then we have leaky roof." I said, "You just kind of like you don't want that." So we try to get everything like as prepared as possible, and then we're like, set up baby rooms, and and then doing all of those things. And it's like I didn't know how I did it, but anyhow, everything's done. And I was still working when I was till I was like 9 months pregnant, I was still working. Um, so I used to travel to, I visit my clients in San Francisco. Then after I arrived San Francisco, it's like I have to walk about 20 minutes to my client's house. And then so I did that while I was pregnant. And then San Francisco had literally historical high temperature in 2019. So usually they're like 70s or something, cool place. Last year, I think I was there like 80 something. And then they don't have AC in San Francisco, most of the buildings. So I was like walking and sweating and pregnant. I'm like, okay, this is no, I can't do this anymore. I was still like, okay, this is too much for me. So then I switched all my clients to come to me instead. So I still working at my house. And then I told my clients, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go on maternity leave starting this day and probably like 3 months from now. And after my maternity leave, this is kind of a thing. What happened is early 2020. I just had my clients coming back for more sessions. Then pandemic happened. So, so it's like part of me feel grateful that I got to spend more time with my child, and my husband also work from home, so that we both home and take care of the baby. At the same time, it's like, oh, I have to in kind of pivoting, put all my business online and how that to be transition. So and with the baby, sometimes I have to say it's just hard to get things done.
Yeah.
Uh,
How old was your business at the beginning of 2020?
about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, about 3 years. And because when I started, it's kind of a natural transition. I was so I had dog myself. That's how this kind of all started. I had a really difficult dog.
Mm.
It's actually a rescue from Taiwan. It's a
Wow.
feral dogs, like they're street dogs. And then there's a rescue organization will ship them from Taiwan to US or Canada.
Wow. Okay.
And I adopted him back in 2015, I think. What happens? We would go to the airport, pick the dog up the day they arrive,
Mm.
and so I never met the dog before, right? Like you don't see the dog, you're just committed. Okay, I'm gonna take this dog home, and they
Wow.
will ship the dog over. And then Taiwan dogs like actually have a lot of behavior issues, most of them.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so that's really how I got started involved in training and everything. And I, since get so involved, I end up to actually volunteer as an in-house dog trainer for local nonprofit rescue group.
Wow.
So that's then about 2.5 years working there, and then I transitioned to start my own business. And that's kind of like, so the first couple years of my business is kind of like just naturally happened that way. The people just like knowing me doing this for a long time, and I was really busy for a couple of years. And then I got pregnant. I like, okay, I'm kind of gonna take a break. And then especially like never had kids before, don't know what to expect. And being Chinese, I think the part also like we have a lot of rules around pregnancy and also postpartum recovery. So I'm trying to find like the, how do you say, like a happy medium where
Balance. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that works for me. And because the classic Chinese like a way too strict, I was like, that probably not gonna work for me.
Yeah.
And then so I have to find some way that I can, what's things I can do and how much help I need, if after giving birth, and who knows what's going to happen, what happen if I have a C-section, right? What thing I need to prepare for. I
Yeah.
think those are a lot of things to consider at the time. So
Yeah.
obviously,
Especially as a
yeah.
first time mom, a lot of things to did you take any classes or did you hire a doula? Did you have a midwife versus an OB?
I did attend a class,
Okay.
and I didn't hire anybody else. Just
Okay.
I think it's part of a culture thing. Like in China, we don't have doula or anything like that. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a. So I wasn't like not sure if that's some. I just like, oh, I'll be fine. It is like part of like I can do this, right?
Yeah.
Um and then we went to the birthing class, and we learned quite a bit things that I never thought about before, for sure. And also several probably myths that I used to maybe believe or thought was true actually were not true. Um, so that was helpful. And my birthing class is at my birthing hospital, so they kind of give you a tour what's going to look like, give you an idea what the room going to look like, which was really helpful. So yeah, obviously if I ever have a second child, I don't think I would need birthing class anymore. But I think for any first time mom, I do think it's really helpful.
Talk a little bit about what happened. How did you, like, right before you went into labor, and then how long you were in labor, what sort of happened throughout the course of that time leading up to you meeting your baby girl?
Oh, this is like, I think I was 40 weeks pregnant. So they had my due date. Then somehow I didn't know what happened. I had to switch OB because, oh, this was another story. I switched OB the first time because we moved from another town to the new town. And my previous OB actually changed hospital too. So so I kind of have to get a new OB. And I finally got my new OB. And I think I was 6 months pregnant at the time. And then one day I just got the phone call from the hospital, said, doctor no longer work here. You need to find a new OB. And there's no explanation or anything. So I don't know what happened. No one knows, I guess, or they can't share. And
Oh, wow.
so I was 6 months pregnant. And then they give us like a couple of names, said that you can call and to find new OB. So
Oh,
I have
okay.
to find the one that in my insurance network.
Right.
Um, And so I found my new OB, which is luckily not too bad. Like the transition pretty smooth. So I just stick to my new OB. Like, part of me is like, okay, please don't have me switch another OB. I will be losing my mind.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, and so oh yeah, besides in the insurance, you have to make sure the OB give birth at your hospital too.
Yeah.
So that's because I already picked the hospital. So I have limited, options that
Options,
I can
right.
choose. So, and picking doctor, I think is one of the tough time. It's like you really don't have real reviews. Like people online, it's like they all have good and bad reviews, and you never know what exactly you're actually kind of hoping for.
Right.
And having OB, the other challenge is you can't really constantly switching. Um, I don't know if other states are different, but in California, at least how I do it, when I first switched OB was so difficult because not every OB can accept you. They will review your case. And if you happen to be high risk or something, they might refuse to take you on as a patient.
Oh, okay.
So I was part of me like, okay, I picked this OB. If she's not that great, I probably don't have much options to switch again. So,
Mhm.
but luckily I really liked her. So that really worked out.
Mhm.
And then, so my mother-in-law came about 1 month prior to my due date. My due date also got
Okay.
messed up once. My first OB told me a due date. My second OB told me a different due date. And my third OB back to my first OB's due date. And they don't know what happened in between. They didn't know what
Oh,
what my due date actually was. In a sense, I guess my records like have different dates.
okay.
um, so my mother-in-law came like a month before because she really didn't want to miss it, right? And then I think part of the challenge is like my tummy getting really big, and my mother-in-law is like, "Oh my gosh, when are you gonna pop? When are you gonna pop? When are you gonna pop?" Right? And I was like, "Okay, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I personally try to like hoping for a natural birth in a sense of like, okay, baby ready to come type of thing.
Yeah.
So when I was a doctor, the doctor kept asking me, do you want us to be like help you induce labor or anything like that? So I'm like, no, I said, let's just wait another week. Let's wait another week, right? And then I think I was at 40 weeks. And that's when doctor said, okay, this week you're gonna have to be induced because we don't want to pass certain weeks.
Oh, okay.
And so I have contractions all the time. However, apparently they're just not strong enough to get baby out. So
Mm.
I'm like, oh, my baby's so comfy inside. That's probably why she's not
Yeah.
she's not ready to come out.
Loving it in
Uh,
there. Mhm.
yeah, and she's getting really big. I think I start like have like crazy stretch mark literally in the last couple weeks of my pregnancy. Like they're like
Oh, okay.
appearing overnight. Like my tummy just like getting so big.
Mm,
And then so I was like, okay. So the doctor told me they scheduled me on Friday night, I think. And then Thursday morning, like midnight or midnight-ish. And I don't know what, I guess I was just nervous, so you never know. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel my baby's moving. So I was freaking out.
mm,
And so I called my doctor. My doctor said, okay, just come to the hospital then. And so I went to the hospital. They said, you're fine, your baby's fine. And then they put all the monitors on, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna start to induce you right now. And the
mm.
part I didn't know is that induction take freaking whole day.
Takes a while. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, part of me thought they give you a shot. You're just like, oh my gosh, labor's coming, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, I didn't realize take this long. So they're like, okay, we're gonna get you started. Then we won't see you till tonight. They're like, I'm like, what? So I was laying in bed, right? We can move around, but really like not very convenient.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then that's like Thursday, yeah, during the day. And the one thing I've been telling like all new moms, I said, if you ever give birth or being induced, that you can actually like schedule the date. I said, never do Thursday or Friday. And because my lactation consultant come over on Thursday and, uh, or Friday or something like that, during the day. And before I had the baby, she just come over, talk to me, and
Mm.
then once the baby's here, she's not working that day because weekend.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that's like applied to all the states, but probably very similar. So I didn't get any help to actually help my baby latch. And I
Mm.
had really hard time actually for her to latch. She has tongue tie and lip tie. So she had really hard time to latch at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
those are something like I totally like wasn't prepared for, right?
Yeah.
Part of me is like, oh, it's all natural, it's gonna happen. I was like, I tell myself we're gonna be fine, and then that didn't really work out. And
Yeah.
then so I got induced, and then the doctor came to break your water sometime during the day. And that's when like, oh, the pain just started coming. You're like,
Yeah.
woo, okay, this is all right. This is like, yeah. I don't know how the part of being like, I don't know how women go through this. You know what I mean? Like, and the other part of me is like, oh my gosh, I don't know how women do this without epidural. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
they're so strong. But supposedly, you suppose can survive that, obviously. Like, right? But but it's
I
like,
did. It's possible.
yeah, right. So I'm like, gosh, I don't know. I don't know how you guys do it, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah. But epidural is
Part
there for a reason. Nothing wrong with using everything at your disposal. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other part for me using epidural, I think also because I'm from China, like they don't have it. At least when I
Oh,
when
they
I
don't.
grow up,
Okay.
it's not a thing. I'm sure now probably they do. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But so we always like on TV heard, oh, when you give birth in US, that's you don't go through as much pain. I'm like, oh, that sounds so good. And so I'm like, okay, I want to be drugged. Please drug me. And so giving birth itself is not too bad, I guess. I think, well, obviously get induced for the whole day. And I think at 9 or 10 p.m., they finally tell me I was ready.
Oh, okay.
And then the active labor, like pushing, I think only take me 30 minutes or something. So the nurse was like, oh my gosh, you're the rare one. And your first time mom. So that's like kind of rare. So I guess I was lucky on that. What happened was, so my husband totally freaked out because I couldn't see anything, obviously. And my husband freaked out because my baby came out with cord around her neck. So I didn't know this, and no one obviously telling me stuff. And initially, I was also want to collect the cord blood too. Um, so none of those happened. Obviously, those are unplanned because once the cord around her neck, the doctor just right away have to cut it, get it out, make sure she's not choking or anything like that. So obviously, it happened all super quick, and um, I also didn't have the second push for the what the thing called afterbirth. So, when in birthing class they say, "Oh, you're gonna have baby," then several minutes later, the doctor gonna ask you to push again and to push out your afterbirth.
Right, when
So,
you birth the
so
placenta.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I was laying there, and I saw they said they tell me stop pushing because baby's out, and then I obviously didn't know what happened afterwards. My husband told me, "Oh, the baby come out with a cord on the neck," and he was like, he felt something wrong, right? He's very nervous, but he didn't want to say anything because he doesn't want to make the situation worse. And then I didn't know all of those. I saw the baby and I was just waiting. And then I see the doctor kind of like try to stitch me up already. I can see her hands moving. And I said, "Oh, do I need to push again? Like, where's my placenta?" Right. And then she's like, "No, you don't need to do that." And then so they stitch me up. Oh, feel like forever how long she stitched me up. Like, that's like feel like forever. And my husband told me that your placenta already out, and I didn't even know, obviously. I didn't push it. I didn't know. And my husband joked that that's the largest amount of blood he's ever seen. And when
Oh, poor husband. He was seeing it all and trying to hold it all in.
I know, he's
Yeah.
like, "I've sold more than I needed to." And then
Okay, so he was trying to be
and
quiet and calm for you. You weren't getting much information from the doctors, but he
yeah,
was sort
I
of
have
letting
no
you know what
idea
was
what's
going
going on
on. Okay.
there. And then obviously baby then start crying. Then there's the other thing I wasn't prepared for is when you're ready to push, how many people just suddenly come to the room.
It's a lot of
I,
folks, yeah.
yeah, I thought at the beginning just the OB. That's really what I was thinking. And then
Mm,
obviously the nurse at the hospital with me, and then my OB came. Then there's OB's assistant. Then there's another guy and another person came out, and then they said that's a pediatrician and pediatrician assistant. And
mm,
I'm like, "Oh my goodness, there's like five people suddenly just show up, and
yeah,
then they turn on all the brightest light possible, right?" I'm like,
yeah.
"Ooh, all right, this is something." And and then they grab the baby, they like start doing things to her, and then she had this loudest cry ever. She's still a screamer till this day.
Mm,
She's so loud. And so we couldn't hear us talking or anything. I think it's
mm,
kind of like almost a blur, but it's like I was obviously dozed up and not sure what's going on. No one tell me anything.
yeah.
I feel like kind of not much information. Then my husband, I guess my husband was in, not maybe not necessarily in shock, but he wasn't sure what's going on either. All I heard is my
Mm,
husband asked the doctor, "Is everything okay?" And the doctor said, "Do you see me panic? If I'm not panicked, then everything's okay."
oh,
And
okay.
something like that. That's the only conversation I heard, and I was like, "What's going on?" Right? Part of me is like, "What to be not okay?" Right? And then
Yeah.
like no one tell me anything, and the nurse just said everything's fine, baby's out, right? Like, yeah. So I didn't know any of what's going on till
Mm,
so doctor finally finished stitching me up, and then they asked me if I want skin to skin,
mm,
and I'm like, "Sure," and they put baby on me, but I actually don't remember much about that. And
okay.
I think just happened too much, right? Because everybody's surrounding you. Because
Yeah. And
and
not
I
to
was
mention you
like,
were in labor for hours for an induction. You didn't realize how long it would actually take to get things going.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's a lot of time. Yeah.
yeah. And I kind of hold the baby. I'm like, "Oh, baby's out," and then they kept waiting for me. They're like, "Okay, when you're done, we have to take her to give her a bath." So they're all staring at you, and they're not like, "Okay, enjoy your baby" type of thing. It's not ready there, right? So it's like,
Yeah. Oh, they
"Okay,
give
are
a
you?"
baby a bath right away at your hospital. Okay.
Yeah. so then yeah, and then it's just then I'm like, "Okay, you can take the baby." So they took the baby and they go do whatever the thing they need to do, and baby
Mhm.
just crying the whole time, obviously, and which is not helping, I think.
Yeah.
And then my doctor finally came over and said we couldn't do the cord blood, and because the cord on her neck, we take care of that, and then all of those. So then the doctor actually done her work and come talk to me and told me like I have second degree tear or whatever, and give me all the
Yeah.
instructions, that sort of thing. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, now I finally kind of know what's going on. And then the nurse came in and said, "Oh, your mother-in-law asking if she can come in yet, right?" Like,
Oh,
oh, so I'm like, "Oh yeah, let's." And then we said, "Oh, let's try nursing the baby the first time, right?" In the birthing class, they said, "Oh, it's so natural. You just baby come out, they want to eat. You just try to nurse your baby right away."
yeah. It may be natural,
Yeah,
but it's not innate, is what I heard somebody say, and I completely agree with that. Yeah.
and it turned out pretty horrible. That
Yeah.
she does try to like, she definitely tried to latch, but I have no idea how. And then the nurse tried to help me, but later on I met my second lactation consultant when my baby was already like 2 months old. That's when I first time understood how to actually correctly latch a baby.
Okay.
It took me that long to, I was like, apparently everybody tried to tell me things, but somehow it just didn't
Just
get
didn't
there.
land. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no lactation consultant can
Uh,
help me either, so because
yeah.
the timings, I'm like, oh, that's something like, I was like, oh, I would never give birth on a weekend anymore, like that's not very convenient.
Yeah.
um so, and then obviously the nipples are sore, right? Like just, and apparently the other thing, I think one thing it's really crazy is on Sunday I got discharged back home,
Mm.
and Sunday night my baby was screaming murder the whole night, like she couldn't stop crying, and
Oh.
we didn't know what why, so we called this phone number on the back of the insurance card, like they have like on-call nurse try to help,
Mm.
and they heard what's going on. They said that you need to back to your hospital. So we're like, oh my gosh, hopefully
Oh.
there's nothing wrong with my kid. So we went back to the birthing hospital. They have an emergency room. So we actually went to the emergency room.
Mm.
And then the on-call doctor at the emergency room, he couldn't find anything wrong with the baby, but the baby couldn't stop crying. And
Mm.
then he called the pediatrician because they have birthing centers, so they always have pediatrician on call.
Mm.
So the pediatrician came. She also couldn't tell what's wrong with the baby. And so she said, I guess she kind of said maybe baby a little hungry, but she wasn't very like confirmed to say, oh, that's what's going on or anything like that. So and she gave us some gas drops, like, okay, maybe baby have gas, baby couldn't pass gas or something like that. So we have no idea what's going on. Baby was screaming. And finally, like second morning, I called my pediatrician's hospital, said I need an appointment now because my baby went to ER last night and she's screaming whole day and we didn't know what's going on.
Mm.
So they squeeze in an appointment for us. Um, that's when we're like arrived there, and the doctor weighed my baby and said she lost 12% of her body weight. And she said that's ba- basically your daughter was starving. That's what's going on. That's why she's screaming.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and I'm like, really? No one can just tell me that? Like I went to the ER and everybody there, and no one told me that's the reason.
Mm.
So my pediatrician said you have to substitute because apparently my milk didn't come in. And they're like, she's like, you have to substitute, otherwise your baby gonna starve. So then my husband went out to get all the formulas and stuff like that and try
Mm.
to get those. And my daughter hates bottles. She refused to drink from the bottle.
Oh.
And till this day, she still doesn't drink from bottle. Like I'm like, oh. And then so that was really hard at the beginning. And I think took another maybe 2 or 3 days for my milk finally came in. Then I met the first lactation consultant, because my want to make sure my baby's getting weight, have good latch. And then
Yeah.
the conclusion was my baby didn't have good latch, but she's able to take in enough milk. So they kind of like, okay, let's, I guess they just like, we don't have to fix this, right? Like,
Okay.
um, and then they also told me to drink like milk, like those tea to like help you get more milk and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like drinking more herbal tea.
Yeah.
And And then things were okay around, I guess, when she's 2 months old. Then I had horrible, what is called? I sound like, the milk, blocked milk duct.
Oh, yes, yes. Engorged.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then and I was like, oh my god, this is like horrible, and I
Oh.
couldn't. I watched tons of YouTube videos how to deal
Mhm.
with it, and none of them helped, like zero.
Oh.
And then I finally reached out to the second lactation consultant, and she came over the same day, and she gave me some like tips, and she showed me how to actually latch my baby. I'm like, oh my gosh, no one actually taught me how to latch my baby
Mm.
all this long, like all these months. And then, but she also told me it's gonna be really hard because my baby's so used to latch the wrong way,
Oh, okay.
and so it's actually hard for her to latch it the right way.
Right. Because it's
Um,
been 2 months. Yeah.
yeah, and till now I don't think my baby have like perfect latch or anything, but so worked. So I
Yeah.
just leave it that. But part of me is like, oh, I wish I knew the second lactation consultant earlier.
Yeah.
And knowing her was also kind of luck, both bad luck and good luck, because my pediatrician gave me a list of the lactation consultant. So I picked the one on the list when I first picked the first one. Then the second time I went to the list, I want somebody can actually came to my home instead of me driving to them.
Mm.
And then I called all three of them on the list. None of them are available. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even find a lactation consultant right now. And I really need somebody. So I emailed my OBGYN, and she gave me this lactation consultant's name.
Mm.
And she's only like 20 minutes away from my house too. So
Awesome.
it's really like kind of a good luck to like find her, and she's really helpful. And I think that's also part of it. That's when my baby like 2 months old. And then yeah, I didn't know how I just now sharing the story with you. I was like, wow, I went through a lot.
Yeah, no, that is a lot. And I so appreciate you sharing your story. There are so many like nuggets there. Tell everybody like where they can find you online if they do want to purchase like some of your virtual services, if they do have a dog that they want to train. And then as well as where people can reach you if they wanted to ask like questions about how you were able to find your lactation consultant and questions that you asked your lactation consultant and things like that.
Yeah, so if regarding to my personal business, like if you have a dog that you're struggling, especially for the owners, that if you've tried everything that you can think of and you're still struggling, then make sure to check out my website, mensa-mats.com, and that's mensa-mutts.com, and download the free report. I debunk two biggest dog industry norms, as well as give you 3 techniques you can use to relax your dog today. And for question to ask lactation consultants, part of me I share with my dog training clients, actually, I said, don't do things just because it's cheaper or it's just for convenience. Because the first time when I picked the first lactation consultant, they are covered by insurance. And so I was so concerned about it has to be covered by insurance. So I picked them. And I have to drive about almost 30 minutes to go to their places. And that's like within a week after giving birth. I have to drove my baby and drove there. And then because it's like a hospital setup, I have to wait in the waiting room for like 30 minutes. So it's like the entire experience, I was like, wow, it's not great at all. Um, and just all because I was like, oh, it's a reputable hospital, it must be good, and it's covered by insurance, so it's cheap. So I really, in a sense, regret that decision. So the second time, this lady, I tell myself I need somebody come to my house. I can't drive my baby all over the place. And then at that point I'm like, okay, like none of them are actually covered by insurance. They're all out of the network for most of the people come to your house. So I'm like, I just gonna ask how much they're gonna charge. So obviously make sure they're not like impossible to afford in a sense, but reality is not, it's not that crazy. Um, so so then I had this lady come over really because I want the quality of the work, right? And then, you know, and then it's also she can come over just to like help me, and there's no waiting time. And she actually show up the same day I reached out, so it's like almost like life-saving experience. So yeah, I tell my dog training clients, because same thing in a lot of things in life is that sometimes we focus on the wrong thing. We almost like lost what we're supposed to do, like take care of ourselves or stuff like that. We're like, oh, we just want to pick the cheap one. And even though the situation is much bigger, the challenge is much bigger. It's about myself, about my baby, my clients, about your dog and yourself, their well-being there. And, you know, so that's really something I'd love to like share with your audience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much, Grace. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us, your time and your expertise. I really, really appreciate that. I will definitely link your website and also the awesome resource that you've created for everyone totally for free in the description box. So everybody check there. And then if you want to follow Grace on social media, I will also list her social media platforms below. And thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of the podcast. I really appreciate you listening.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.